Hey there, friends. Welcome to the ELAR and Right Prescription by Bill McDonald. Before we get started, I want you to take a look at my email address in the upper right-hand corner there, writing_doctor, spelled out, at yahoo.com. If you have any questions and you're watching this on YouTube, then feel free to email me. If you're watching this on one of my Facebook groups, my writing page, the Right Prescription page, or my regular page, go ahead and feel free to message me if you have any questions. To be kind and generous, if anybody would like a digital copy of this document that I'm going to show you, which in my own personal opinion is probably going to be the most informative, most helpful document and video that you'll see this year in terms of helping you and your students understand what constructed responses look like, short answer, extended essay response, as well as editing and revising. I went ahead and spent probably about 30 to 40 hours putting this document together. And what I did was I combined the world where when TEA put something online, they put it in so many different pieces, it's almost impossible for us to put it together to make sense with. So what I've done is I've combined the passage or passages with all of the questions, with all of the answer choices, and even all of the answers. And I'm going to show you, to the best of my ability, a way to teach all of these new testing type items in one video. So I'm going to ask you to share or tag one of your reading or writing teacher friends, and hopefully I'll get an email or message from some of you who would like the digital copy. I've done this test for third, fourth, and fifth grade so far, but fifth grade is the only one that I've actually combined the answer choices and even included all the answers, just so you can kind of see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and get started so that I can help you as much as possible in as short a time as possible. Now, for those of you who already have my folder, it's called the Advanced English Language Arts Reading Writing folder. And it's from the 22-23 school year. So if you have any other one before this one, it's the old version that only talks about regular expository and doesn't include anything about constructed responses, short answer responses. Okay, so if you look at the first box right here, I just want you to know that set up to 75% of the questions are still going to be what I call WW questions, Wonder Woman. So if you think about the color that I have here, if they're regular multiple choice, the first W is, what is the question? What is the question? And of course, what is the topic or TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills that it's about? And what is the answer? So 75% of the answers are still going to be just Wonder Woman. What is the question? Red light. What is the answer? Now, sometimes the answer is one part. So one idea. Just finished eating my dinner, so I got some of my hot sauce on my finger. clean that up for you. All right. One idea, and sometimes the questions will require a dual response. And so you can see here that inside my red stickman head, it does say idea, singular, or ideas, plural, in case the question has two or more parts that you have to respond to. Okay, so keep that in mind when you choose your answer. And so what I would recommend that you do is go to Dollar Tree and find these little eyeballs that they're selling for Halloween. Find the ones that have red eyes because, again, the two things that are important to get the 1 point, and in some cases, the 2 points for multiple choice whenever there's more than one answer. What is the question? What is the answer? Now, if we go to the 2 point questions, the yellow, after your red light, you get to a yellow light, you're going to see that I have yellow here, that once you go beyond just the answer and they ask you to do short answer questions, that would be the yellow light. Where is the answer? What is the evidence? Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to guide you through this 5th grade test, taking one question at a time, and we'll make some tally marks. And again, what I did for you was I merged all of the worlds that TEA decided for some reason to leave splintered all over the place. So this is the 5th grade reading, new item types, sample questions. Number 1 was an informative multi-select. So when you look over here to the left-hand side, multi-select, okay? Multi-select means that it's going to be worth more, 1 or 2 points. Constructed will always be worth 1 or 2 points. So let's see how it's formatted. Use Kala cactus to answer the following question. What are the most likely reasons the author includes paragraphs 1 and 2 of the article, the Kala cactus? Select 2 answers. And the answers are typical: to connect the reader to the topic. In other words, you have an idea and you have a topic, and so above that idea called a passage is a title. And so what authors will often do in the first paragraph is to get the attention of the reader. And so that's a typical response that they ask for there. And then when I was looking at the second choice, to provide a mental picture of the subject, that's also known as imagery. And so when you're watching a movie, what they tend to do for the first minute or two is they keep panning the camera left and right and let you see what we would call the setting, the senses, or what in reading is known as imagery. So in this question, they decided to spend the first question doing a multi-select, and the students had to choose what they thought were the 2 reasons. And so probably paragraph 1 would have been to connect the reader and attention getter, and paragraph 2, they were painting a picture with imagery to establish the setting using the senses. Okay. Number 2, informative. It was an informative genre passage, just like number 1, same passage. Short answer, 5.6G, and it's worth 2 points. And in case you're not aware, there's 2 separate graders. who don't know each other. And in order for the student to get 2 points, both readers must say, yes, they did give the answer, and yes, they did give textual evidence. So when you look at my folder, where's that? That's up here. So we're going to go ahead and place our first two check marks up here, because on short answer, if you give me the answer, you get a point. And if you can tell me where is the answer, yellow light, and what is the actual evidence, in other words, the text, either with or without quotations, because as you're going to notice in these examples that I'm going to show you, sometimes they put them in quotations, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they don't even tell you where the evidence is at. They just give you the evidence. So as long as, apparently they're not very picky, as long as you do both things, then you can get the 2 points on short answer. So let's take a look and see how it was worded. And so because I have red and yellow as my two colors, the answer here is red and the evidence is yellow. It says, read the question carefully, then answer in the box provided. As you can see on short answer, you're allowed up to 475 characters. Do you have to use them? Apparently not. There's only 2 sentences in the sample response they gave. The question was, based on paragraph 7, so just one paragraph, why does the wood rat use the kala cactus to build its nest? And I want you to notice that all of the questions are based on what I call the 6+1 W's. Who, what, when, where, why, which, or how. And how doesn't start with a W, but it ends with a W. So what they want to know is, why does it use the kala cactus to build its nest? Okay, just to make sure I give you the same concept in the first one. What are the reasons, plural, more than one, and how many do they want? They want 2. The author includes paragraph 1 and 2. And so I would probably guess, like I told you, that the first paragraph was to connect the reader to the topic, and the second one was to create imagery, a mental picture. Okay, so why does the wood rat use the kala cactus to build its nest? What's the answer? And then support your answer with evidence. So red light, yellow light to get 2 points. The wood rat makes its nest in the kala because it helps to control the rat's body temperature. That's the reason. They asked you why. So that's the answer. And as you see here, this is the way the answer was written in the state samples. The thick leaves create a cool environment in the summer, temperature control, and a warm one in the winter. So it's sort of like being in a house with walls. It cools you off in the summer and warms you up in the winter, except since we don't need leaves around us, we need walls where we can relate to that by talking about how we live. And so there's the 1 point, the answer, and the second point, the evidence. And notice that they did not use quotation marks and they did not tell where they got the evidence from. It just says, give evidence from the article. And that is the evidence. They just didn't tell you the location, and they did not put it in quotation marks. Number 3, informative and it was a poem with free verse. In other words, there was no rhyme, there was no rhythm, there was no pattern. It was just free flowing writing. So it's almost like a story written in first person or second person in most cases, sometimes in third person. So the other one was an informative. And so they said use the call cactus and informative, the cactus wren, the poem to answer the following questions. And so what does it say? Multi-part. And again, it's important that you understand that in multi-part, not multi-select, you have to get part A correct to get the first point. Even if you get part B correct, if you do not get part A correct, it states very clearly that you will not get any points. So where is that on my folder? Multi part. There it is. 1, 2. So 2 more. The answer to part B is dependent on part A. In other words, if A is not correct, you will not earn the points for part B. So let's take a look and see, are we comparing or are we contrasting the two selections? Which important idea, and so I'm going to draw an eyeball there, and important is an opinion, and so that's pretty vague, and it allows your students to kind of broaden their horizons and think of anything that's explained, expository, in both the article and the poem. Okay. So what they're teaching your students to do is first answer the question for part A, and then for part B, because it relies on the text evidence, basically which lines, that's the where part, where can you prove it, and it shows the evidence and the location. So basically, it's a glorified way of doing short answer, except the answers are already written for your students. So the idea that was in both the poem and the informative passage was that many animals make their homes inside the kala cactus. Okay. And I'm thinking cactus makes me think of thorns. And so I can imagine that the thorns are a great way for the animals to protect themselves. Many people are not going to want to mess with an animal who's hiding inside a cactus. It would be like messing with a porcupine. That's not going to go very well. So, how can you prove that in both places? Let's see. Which lines from the poem support the answer to part A? And so, did it ask for the poem and the informative? No. It only asks you to prove or to give evidence from the poem. And so all you have to do is look at one selection. It is so good, a nest that when we leave it, other creatures will move in, a family of crickets or a cactus climbing mouse. And so you can see it is probably the cactus because it says a cactus climbing um, mouse. And so there are the lines that you can find it in. So your multi-part A and B, which one is in both, and which one can you use to prove part B, the poem. Number 4, hot text and I'm going to put hot text for one check. And I'm also going to come over here and put a check mark on multi-select because they have to select two hot texts, or I can cross this off and say I have to select two texts that are highlighted for you. So basically, if you in most programs, if you don't have that format or that structure, if you just put your mouse over text, you can usually copy and then paste it. And so basically the text becomes hot by you highlighting it yourself and then copying and pasting it to the answer choices, which is one way to solve for those of you that don't have that kind of a program. And so let's see what the question is. The call a cactus, use the call a cactus, that's the informative. 5.7C, 2 points. Which sentences, plural, from paragraphs 4 through 6 show that the call a cactus or subject is difficult to harvest? So if I'm going to think of keywords, difficult is a negative connotation. So it's a negative opinion. So I need something that talks about it being negative what? To harvest. When you harvest something, you're trying to prepare it to be used by people or by animals or for some purpose. So I'm going to look directly at the answers. The animal uses its large curled horns and its hoof to tear off pieces of a koala and remove the plants. Okay. So it's so hard to get the koala and get the spines off that the animal has to use its horns and its hooves to be able to accomplish that. Apparently, the koala is difficult to get off of the cactus. The other one, they roll the buds on a hard surface to remove the spines and then roast them slowly on an open fire. So as you can see, they as in people. So paragraph 5 is how animals use them, and paragraph 6 is how people use them. So they have to roll them on a hard surface back and forth because cactus does have spines, like I mentioned. Then they can roast them on the fire. So that it makes it difficult. You have to kind of work to be able to use it. So those are the two answers. And so there's your hot text. I'm going to make sure that I didn't mark it twice. Yes, just once. Hot text. So then we'll go to the next one when we have a play. And if I'm not mistaken, let me double check to be sure. The rest of these questions are all from a play, from a drama that I've included on pages, I believe it's pages 7 and 8. Why are lines 10 through 18 important to the plot? So plot there's some sort of action, there's some sort of action, some event taking place, then they have a rising action, they have a climax, they have the falling action, and then they have the resolution, or they have the ending of the story. So lines 10 through 18, you would just start, you would make a bracket, you would highlight in the passage just lines 10 through 18, and you only look before it or after it if you can't tell why something is in there. They provide a background explanation of the characters, plural, attitudes. Okay? Basically, they're saying what happened previous to this passage, this poem that this drama, this play that we're looking at. So there was background explanation, and what else? They introduce a problem that the characters face. So if you talk about climax, well, there's like 50 something, 60 something lines in this play. I don't think that the climax would be mentioned at the beginning of the play, and I don't think the resolution would be mentioned at the beginning of the play. So those wouldn't make sense. They provide the falling action of the play. Well, those things are all too early. 10 through 18, when you have just common sense, says that when you have like 60 something lines in a play, the ones that would make the most sense would be uh, setting the background and setting the problem. So multi-select. Let me go ahead and place two more check marks over here. Those are the two answers, more than one correct answer to a question. And we'll move to number 6, multi-part. Again, multi-part means that part A has to be correct in order to get credit for part B. So let's check and see what the question is. Again, these answers are there. It's sort of like just two consecutive questions, except placed into one. It's one question with two parts. So it's sort of like a two-headed monster. Like I told you, with Miss Wonder Woman here, what is part A? And so what you're going to notice on most of these multi-part ones, the first point is the answer, and the second point is the evidence. Okay. Let me show a couple of friends of mine here. These guys here have only one eye, and you can buy these at Dollar Tree. All right. If they only ask you for the answer, you only need 1 point. So it would be like one red eye. So if your students are good at selecting answers, you might buy these little one-eyed minions, these little one-eyed monsters at Dollar Tree. But sometimes the answer has 2 points of value. And so you might use Wonder Woman to say, okay, what's the 1 point that is the answer, and the other point for the evidence on the multi-part. So let's take a look at this so we can see what they ask us. First, answer part A, very important, then answer part B, because again, part B is dependent on part A being correct. Which sentence best describes Baby Bear's relationship with Goldie in The Return of Goldilocks? Now, what I want you to notice, okay, the two characters are Goldie and Baby Bear. When you have a relationship, you have some sort of connection to each other. And the thing that's very important to realize is that they don't ask about their relationship at the beginning, the middle, or the end. So as long as you can answer one of those questions correctly, what was their relationship at the beginning, the middle, or the end, as long as one of them is true, then we can choose that answer. Okay, so let's see which one is true. Baby Bear is not interested in playing with Goldie. That is true. But he agrees to play with her in order to please his Papa Bear. Papa Bear didn't like Goldie either. When you read the poem, you'll see that. So that both parts have to be true in order for you to pick that answer. Baby Bear and compound subject, bond over enjoying Mama Bear's cooking. The entire time they're together, they're playing video games. They're not eating any food. So I can't choose an answer that's not true. Baby Bear respects Goldie's courage. So towards the end, when Goldie explains why she broke into the house, uh, broke Baby Bear's chair, ate the porridge, and slept in Baby Bear's bed. Like, this is basically the return of Goldilocks. Um, he says that he has respect for her and he even admires her. And that's towards the end. And it's okay that it's towards the end because they didn't ask when, they just wanted to know which, not a when. So it didn't matter when it took place. Goldie blames a friend for what happened. That is true. But Baby Bear does not believe her. That is not true. Baby Bear does believe her, and it causes them to be better friends than they were before. Okay? So, if that's the answer on multi-part questions, what they're going to ask you to do is prove it. Get the other point by showing me something when you respect somebody. It's a positive emotion that you have about them. Which line from the play, which line, singular, best supports the answer? So, in other words, where is the evidence and what is it? 12-year-olds do not make play dates. That doesn't sound like respect. Line 43. Actually, it was a gutsy thing to do. I really admire what you did, really. Okay, so Baby Bear shares an emotion. I admire you. And an opinion. Oh, that was very gutsy. That was very brave of you. Since those are both positive things, that would be a sign of respect. A former friend of mine, that girl who always wears the the red hoodie. Since that's just facts, there's no emotional or mental connection there to create a positive or negative opinion or emotion. All I have here is that Goldie is talking about a former friend, um, but it doesn't show the respect that they're looking for. Your mom makes excellent porridge, by the way. Okay. Um, she did say that, but the baby bear's relationship with Goldie. Okay. Baby bear's relationship with Goldie. Since this is Goldie talking, and she's saying your mom makes excellent porridge, by the way, that's Goldie's relationship with Baby Bear. When you give a compliment, your mom makes excellent porridge. Well, when you give somebody a compliment and it's about them, that's one thing. But if you give somebody a compliment about somebody else, since that compliment is not directly connected to each other, then if I'm trying to decide which one to pick, I would probably say I would pick letter B because it shows more respect. Let's go to the next one. Hot text, multi-select. In other words, there's more than one answer. You go over to the hot text part. Hot text, multi-select, meaning more than one. And so one of the things that I don't like that I asked TEA about in an email is I noticed that sometimes there's 3 or 4 or 5 answers, and they are still going to only on constructed responses only give your students 2 points for getting all of them correct. And when I asked the gentleman, the director of reading for TEA, for the student assessment division, to clarify if they can get it partially correct, will the students get 1 point? And He said, we don't know yet. We haven't decided that uh, because how much is enough to get partial credit, which is kind of annoying because common sense says if I get at least one of these two answers correct, then I should get 1 point. So just be aware that they hopefully will give your students on answers that have 2, 3, 4, or 5 different steps to do, even though you can only get 2 points for all of them being correct. You might not even get 1 point for partial credit, according to what the gentleman told me in the email. Which sentences from lines 12 through 21, I stop in, starting and starting point, so that Mama Bear is defending Goldilocks? Okay, who are the characters? Mama Bear. And what's the connection between them two, between the two of them? She is defending Goldilocks. When you defend somebody, you stick up for them in the case of the situation. So what we need to look for is which two does the mama bear stick up for, say something, because drama plays, they're pretty much 90% dialogue, the characters talking, and very little in terms of what you would see. Let me just look and show you in the play real quick. There are some times there's what they call staging directions. So we can say staging, the bracket, directions, bracket, action. Staging, directions, action. Papa Bear, staging, directions, action. So just keep that in mind that in a play, the lines are going to be things that are verbal, and some kids are going to ask you, well, how come there's no quotation marks? Well, in a play, they don't put quotation marks because that's all they're doing is talking. So let's look and see. Oh, she didn't break in, dear. You forgot to lock the door. Say, talking about Goldilocks, that she didn't break in like Papa Bear is saying. She's saying that the Papa Bear forgot to lock the door. There's the first defense. The second one, she was only 5 years old. She has matured since then. So the Mama Bear is saying that sometimes when you're younger, you're going to do things that you know maybe don't know are wrong, or maybe you do know they're wrong, but you're not mature enough to resist doing that. And so those are two examples of Mama Bear defending Baby Bear. So that was hot text, 2 points. And one more, short answer. Again, short answer is up here. What is the answer? And what is your evidence that you're going to use to prove it? Red light, yellow light. It will help if you tell me the answer. And I would highly suggest that the answers be in a complete sentence. Where is the answer? The location, whenever possible. And what is the evidence? The actual text, either with or without quotation marks. So as long as they do one or more of these things here, your students can get the second point. Why is the play divided into two scenes? Why is my who, what, when, where, why, which, how? Two scenes. Support your answer with evidence from the play. So the answer is, for the first point, the drama is divided into two scenes to transition to another event. So when some of you ask me, do I have to restate the words from the prompt? Divided into two scenes. They used the word drama instead of the word play. So when I tell my students, so if you look at the folder, when you're answering a question, you think of this acronym WOW. What original words from the question can I use when I'm answering it? What other words could I use? In other words, interchange drama and play. What original way could I answer so that I am answering the question, but maybe in a way that not everybody would think of? Because there's probably several answers that you could think of is something that happens in the first scene that's completely different than something that happens in the second scene. So let's see um, one of them. And these are the ones that the state chose, so I know I'm correct. The drama is divided into two scenes. Why? To transition to another event. So basically, there are two major events. Prove it. Baby Bear insists that he is not letting Goldie near his video games in scene one because he doesn't trust her. Transition. But they are both playing the video game in scene two. So because that's two different events, that's a compare and a contrast. You need to know about both scenes in your evidence because they're asking about both scenes. So if you only give me an answer about one scene, that would be a problem. Okay. Next is the play that we've been studying for the last bit, 2 pages. And what I noticed about the question for 5th grade is that it's a dual central idea statement that's required. Why am I saying central idea statement? Because they basically give the student a mini rubric, and the most that your students can earn from one person is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what are the 5 points that you can earn? Well, in 4th and in 7th grade, we're going to call it the CIS, the central idea statement. In 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the controlling idea statement in 6th, 7th, and 8th, or the thesis statement in 9th and 10th grade. In order to get to land, what they're going to look for is why, give me some reasons why you chose your answer that will help the reader understand, and give me some evidence. And so if you think of the letters W, W, E, you'll be following my extended essay response. W, what is the CIS, the central idea, the controlling idea, or the thesis statement? Organization, where is your answer? Take me WW and give me your evidence. So you can tell me why, or you can tell me where, the location, and give me the evidence. And that will take your 1 land paper to a 2. So do you always have to tell where? No, but I think that it helps with the organization of the response to let the reader know these 2 W's. Where is your answer? And why do you feel like that's the answer to your question? And then present your evidence. So I want you to notice that the word evidence in the alphabet comes before the word example or the word examples. And example comes before the word explain. So in other words, in order to go from a 2 to a 3, you're going to take the evidence, EV, give an example of it or examples, multiple evidence, and explain that, and you can get up to a 3 for that. use evidence from the selection in your response. So basically what they're saying is make sure that in all your explanation to get the 3 points, 0, 1, 2, or 3, you are connecting, you're tying your idea to your reasons, your evidence, and your explanation. So that's important that the evidence is used in the development. In other words, which examples of evidence can you use to develop it? And so what you see here is um, I wrote one for you guys, and it's going to be red for the answer, the evidence and where it's at will be yellow, and the way I developed it using my own words and what I call GPS, getting pretty specific by using the 6 W's+1, by explaining a little bit about who, what, when, where, why, which, and how. I'm going to be able to go from a 2 to a 3 by using the examples and the evidence to explain what I mean. Okay? What you're hoping to do towards the end is have some sort of closure, and it's sort of like the laces. Uh, a lace is like a pair of shoes that ties everything together. What is your topic? The question they're asking you. What is your idea, your central, controlling, or thesis? What is your evidence and your examples that you explain? What are the specific supporting sentences that you're going to use in the way that you explain? So kind of tie it all together like you would the shoes. And so what I did for you guys is I thought to myself, well, my hand has 5 fingers. And so I'm going to draw a 0 in the center of the hand because right now we have 0 points. And then I'm going to put a little line right here which turns this 0, this O, into a Q. What is the question? So that's why that W is up there. What is the answer? Red light. And do I need one idea or do I need 2 ideas? And the one that we're going to look at right now, they asked for 2 ideas, one of how things were at the beginning and how something transitioned towards the end. So that was that first bullet that we saw. Let me turn this way. How do you get a 2? Where can you take me in the passage? And what evidence can you present to me either with or without quotation marks because they don't really care? Then how to get a 3? Take those examples of the evidence and explain them as much as possible using the 6+1 W's. Then, and that's the most that you can get from one reader in terms of organization and development is 0, 1, 2, or 3 points. The other 2 points come from that last bullet when your students have to use the correct spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and grammar. That's going to be worth either 0, 1, or 2 points. And my caution here, if your kids get 0 points on spelling, capitalization, punctuation, be careful that when the 2 readers look at it with their eyeballs, if they both feel like with their eyes they don't understand what they're reading, they can call that response, that computer response, I illegible or I indecipherable. And so it is entirely possible, because it happened all the time, that your students made an effort to respond to the questions and make their way through what I call here the student rubric. but their grammar is so bad that I couldn't even understand it. So your kids still could get 0 points. So I want you to look below here. You see some red, some yellow, and some green. So if you email me at writing_doctor@yahoo.com, you can see it above my head there. I can send you this copy so you can just see one example. And this is all they gave us on the website was the red, one possible answer. And so I had to use the evidence from the play. So that's why I copied and pasted the entire play, all 64 lines of the play, both scenes, so that I could answer the question that was being asked. Okay. So count down, read the play, The Return of Goldilocks. Based on the information in the play, write a response to the following. Explain. Okay. So as you see that word explain, you have to understand that is an expository format to give information. I'm going to explain what I mean. And if you're going to ask me, is that always going to be the case? I don't know. But every single question that was given from 3rd through 10th grade said explain on that second little paragraph, and they used the word informational. And they all have the same guides and the same reminders, the things to do. So let's see what the question says. Why does Baby Bear change his attitude towards Goldie over the course of the play? Okay, Baby Bear is the subject. Why is the reason changing his attitude? It goes from a negative attitude at the beginning and over the course of the play. At the end, he has a positive attitude. And so because the question, in this case, it doesn't have a question mark, because what they're asking you is 2 parts, I need to be able to talk about the before and the after, the beginning, the middle, and the end, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. How does my attitude, Baby Bear, change from negative to positive towards Goldie, the other character that's part of the question, over the course of the play? Okay, so here we go. My answer, red light. Baby Bear has bad memories of Goldie until he got to know her as an older child and learned to like her. Bad memories at the first part. Then he got to know her in scene 2 and learns to like her. And so now I have to disprove that with evidence, the yellow, and explanation, the green. He tells his parents that Goldie broke his chair, negative, in line 14, and he is reminded by Papa Bear that she broke into the house on line 12. Both those are negative things. So he's going to have a pretty negative attitude. Papa goes even further, my own words, to get Baby Bear upset. That's just my own, what original way can I explain it? By calling it a crime when Goldie ran out of the house. That was actually in the play. On line 20, so notice that on this line, I didn't tell you where, but I did use the actual words from the text. This one I did tell you where. On line 20, Baby Bear reacts to his father's comments, my own words, by declaring that because they were bears, Goldie probably thinks they would eat her. And that was mentioned. And so all of this was negative connotations. And so there's a transition. So I would probably suggest if you're going to teach your kids to break a response into 2 pieces, you might have them start a new paragraph with an indentation. So here we go. In scene 2, evidence, when Goldie is beating Baby Bear at a video game, She encourages him to take more chances. All of that was at the beginning of scene 2. At first, he's upset. It doesn't say that, but I can tell by his actions. Actions speak louder than words. So he was showing by things he was saying that he's upset, that she would say something like that. That was the evidence. But he admits that it was pretty brave of her. He used the words, it took a lot of guts to walk in and make herself at home like she did. He even confesses, my own words, that he admired that she had the courage to even attempt it. So these are a transition to positive emotions in the second scene. Goldie spends the next several minutes explaining, oh, got a mistake there, her side of the story. See if your kids can find that if you show it to them. On lines 46 to 56, so about 10 lines, she spends explaining the background information. Why did she do what she did in the first place, according to the Goldilocks and the Three Bears story that we all knew about? Once Baby Bear realizes that someone else had put Goldie up to going in the house and that she hadn't eaten that morning and was tired, causing her not to think straight, all of that was the evidence. Once he realizes her point of view, her perspective, he lets his guard down, my explanation, and decided to be nice to her. Okay. And I'm able to infer by the things that he's about to say. You're welcome in our house anytime, he tells her on line 63. Okay, that would be the explanation, and there's the evidence right there. You're welcome in our house anytime. You don't say that to somebody unless you're deciding to be nice to them. And my closure. Do I need closure? Not necessarily, but I always think of your shoelaces. What's your ending? What can you do to tie it all together? Sometimes all it takes is getting to know someone a little to change how you feel about him or her. Why did I use that? Was because how does my attitude change? Well, at the beginning, he has bad memories and until he got to know her. And so that's called a review statement. At the end, I'm going to I'm going to tie back in something that I mentioned at the beginning. As long as you get to know somebody a little to change how you feel about him or her. And Baby Bear now knows that he has a new friend in Goldie. So in scene 1 and before scene 1, she was an enemy. And in scene 2, she is a friend. All right. We'll go a little faster. Drop down menu. This is revising. There are 4 revising questions. Drop down menu. Let me get my folder. So just so you know, there's 5 points that I could get from the 2 different readers based on the things that they're asking me to do. And if both readers give me the 5 points, I get a 10. And so again, here's what one reader can give me up to 5 points, and the other reader, because they'll have the same exact rubric, can give me up to 5 points. So what is my 1 point? A drop down menu. This is the revising question. Sentence 1 said, many students, and I had realized I had forgotten the S when I showed this to my CREST online training teachers, enjoy learning about science by doing science experiments in a lab. Great information, except the second sentence says, likewise, Nolan Elementary does not have one. Well, since that's sort of the opposite of what sentence 1 says, we would need an opposite statement, unfortunately. So that was from a drop-down menu of 4 choices. Okay. Number 11, another drop-down menu. Inline choice, drop-down menu. Claudia wants to replace the word high, that's too vague, in sentence 9. Select the best word to use. Many people say that a new science lab or subject, okay, what are we talking about? The science lab would be too expensive. Too high would be elevation. Expensive would be the price. And you can tell by the sentences that follow it, they're talking about cost, not the altitude of something. Okay. Next one, combining sentences. So this is open-ended, where your students have to have a word, a phrase, or a sentence. So if you look over here, it's got right here, text entry. I need a string of text, a number, a word, or a phrase. And so basically, I had to go all the way to the point of coming up with uh, one complete sentence that combined two sentences. What it said before was that they want to combine the ideas in sentence 16 and 17. So I would sing the song, Come Together Right Now. So what we want to do is combine without repeating, without changing the content, without changing the meaning. And when you look at the folder, all of these things are important. When you combine sentences, make sure there's not a run-on, not a fragment, there's not a comma conjunction problem, no repetition or as little as possible. Don't change the content, the meaning, don't change the cause and effect relationship, or don't change the compare and contrast relationship, because if any of that is done, that would be a wrong answer choice. So first it said students could work in large groups at these tables. And then it said they could work in small groups too. Could work and groups, could work and groups. Because that has repetition, I want to be able to combine those two sentences. And again, because your students have to write their own text, they would do their best to write what's called text entry without repeating. Students, capital students, could work in large and small groups at these tables, period. And so this would be one of those where they're going to probably have to look at it. I don't think there are, I was talking with somebody and they were saying that for some of the 1-point questions on like Telpas, they have computers that can kind of decipher or determine what the student wrote in order to determine if they get the point or not. But what I was told that on all 2-point questions, the answer and the evidence, and all the 5-point ones, they're going to be graded by humans. And I would probably have to guess to make sure that when you have text entry, it probably will have to be graded by humans. So if you're in the CREST training and you saw what I sent you already, we're practicing by not when we look at the answer key, when we download the answers at the end of the test that I give you, you'll see what the student writes side by side with what could be a possible answer. And so then the grader would have to determine, is that close enough to the actual answer to get the point? And again, that's only worth 1 point. So text entry there. 13, more text entry. So let me put another one. Again, a string of text, meaning a sentence. It could be about as small as a number, a word, or a phrase. In math, it could even be a fraction. It needs to be revised. Every time you see the word revise, all you're doing is thinking, okay, I just need to change the order of the words so that it makes more sense. And it's sort of like saying, I have this puzzle. and I want to put all the pieces of the puzzle in order that makes sense so that I could make the puzzle clear. So here's what it said before. Students at our school are eager in a space made especially for science to learn. So it has students, the who, at our school where are eager, what, in a space where made especially for science, why, to learn. So I've got to change the order of those phrases. So if you break it down in sections like that, it kind of makes your students think of pieces of a puzzle. So students, yes. At our school, yes. Are eager. Eager what? They're eager to learn. And so all I had to do, because eager is an adjective and they're wanting to describe what they're wanting to do, I want to learn. And I'm eager. I'm anxious. I'm excited to learn in a space made especially for science. So again, because this is open-ended text entry and it's only worth 1 point, what I'm going to guess is that all of these kind are going to have to be looked at by a human to see if what your students write matches enough with what is the standard cookie cutter response. The last two are editing, and we see here drop down menu, editing. So what do we got here? We have a drop down menu, 1, 2. And so by the time we're done, we pretty much, even though we're talking about editing and revising now, your students are still going to get some constructed short answer or extended essay. Now, I want you to notice that, and they told me this in an email, that all of the editing and revising questions are going to just be 1 point questions. In other words, if they're not regular multiple choice, Wonder Woman, what is the answer to the question? It will just be 1 point with one of these types. And I want you to notice that for reading, everything that I checked off was above the red line. And even though I haven't checked it yet, 75%, up to 75% of the test will be regular A, B, C, D, multiple choice like old school. So my warning, my suggestion is don't spend 75% of your time doing these types of responses if only about 25% of the questions are going to be based on that. And so my caution is, yes, practice those things. Sometimes remove the answer in multiple choice and have your kids practice answering as if the answer is not there, but make sure that you practice mostly regular multiple choice because up to 75% will be the same way. Okay, editing. I want you to notice this is going to be usage. Sentence 3 is written correctly. Select the response that corrects this response. Now, because the second sentence is written as a fragment in the passage, we need to make sure we understand that you can say, well, if it says, if it's written incorrectly or we need to correct it, most of the time, that's this kind of response right here, that you have a run-on or a fragment because of the word correct. Whenever it says change or it has the word error, what I'm noticing on these new tests is most of the time it's going to be cups, that the mistake is capitalization, usage, punctuation, or spelling. So when I combine sentence 1 sorry, sentence 2 and 3. The book, Poor Richard's Almanac, was a collection of information and advice. We're talking about the book. A, with weather predictions, a calendar, and recipes. That's a fragment because they're trying to get you to continue sentence 2 without pausing for the period and the capital. So you cannot choose an answer that has a fragment. Also, weather predictions, a calendar, and recipes. Because that's a fragment, I cannot choose any answer that changes what was a fragment in the passage to a fragment in the answer choices. It had, what is the it? The book. It had weather predictions, a calendar, and recipes. And so because we have 3 things in the series, what sometimes is a good thing to do is hold up 3 fingers, I'm doing right there, and say predictions, comma, calendar, comma, and recipes. They'll never test this comma right here, but it's going to be up to you whether you teach the kids to put a comma there or not. If the sentence only said it had calendars and recipes, and you've been telling the kids to always place a comma next to and, some of your kids will accidentally put a comma there, even though there's only 2 items in the series, and you only need a comma when there's 3 items or more. So the last one says and had. Whenever you have and to start a sentence, it's fine as long as you do this little trick. Cover up the word and if the rest of the sentence makes sense as an independent clause by itself, had weather predictions, a calendar, and recipes. Since that doesn't make sense, that's also a fragment. So because 3 of them are fragments and do not improve the sentence, we're going to go with the drop down it had, like we have right here. Last one. Make sure that I mark drop down yes. And so as you can see here, those are all the different responses using the folder. And if this was laminated, then your kids at the end of the test, they would use their dry erase board. They would erase all of this, or if you use permanent marker, then they could use nail polish remover in a spray bottle is what I usually do. Spray it to a Kleenex or a napkin and then wipe it down. And that way you can keep using these over and over throughout the year to prepare your students for the editing, revising, and all of the new item types. Just for your knowledge, for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, if it's below this red line, these kind of questions can be used for science, social studies, and math, but anything above the line can be in all of the subjects. Okay, and again, you see a little stick man, red 1, yellow 2, green 3, and then how do I do the editing and revising? I take my paper to the emergency room of editing and revising, where I fix the conventions with cups with 2 S's. Why does it have 2 S's? Because we look for sentence boundaries. And arm with no S, where I add, remove, replace, or move content around until it makes sense. All right, let's check our last one, and then we'll be done. Thank you for your patience. If you watched this entire video, you should probably win a prize because it's probably over an hour long by now. I just really wanted to help you guys understand what the test was going to look like and how those of you who have my materials can use them. Just as a quick review, if you're in the CREST training, part 1 is editing. We've already finished it. Part 2 is revising. We've already finished it. Part 3 is constructed response. We're about halfway through. Part 4 will be short answer. It'll be next week. And part 5 will be extended essay response. So If you don't have some in-depth guidance, this is kind of a fast-forward version of all of this. I would suggest that you take part in my CREST online training. Better yet, I would love to come to your school and work with your students while you observe, or at least work with you. I'm going to several schools this semester already. Look forward to seeing you as well, where you can kind of see some of these. What I hate about talking to a camera, my personality can't come out quite as much as it would if I'm talking to humans in front of me. So apologize for not being able to be right there with you, but I do want to help those of you who are needing guidance. And so this, I went ahead and went quite in depth. So take a look at this one. It says error. And again, if it says error, that's going to be a sort of like a red flag. Is that a cups mistake? It's not always going to be the case, but I noticed on most of the questions that have the word error, the mistake was one of cups, capitalization, usage, punctuation, or spelling. If it had just the word correction, incorrect, and nothing about error, then that's usually a sign that it's either a run-on or a fragment. And so that's just an extra free tidbit for some of you who are needing to use keyword strands to help your kids. So sentence 6, I'm only going to look at sentence 6. I'm not going to read the entire selection. I'm only going to look at sentence 6. However, opposite, people believed this book was more funny and more useful. Since that's more and more, that's repetitious, I don't think that I would select one that would say the same word twice. What would be more funny and useful? Because it's more of both of those. That could have been something that could have been chosen, but that's not how they put it. They repeated more, and we don't want any repetition, REP. He believed his book was funnier, comparatively speaking, and more useful than other books. Since they're not breaking the um, consecutive RE, more, funnier, like you see here, most, funniest, that's two STs in a row, uh, or funniest, uh, that's superlative. And since we're only comparing this book to other books one at a time, we wouldn't use the superlative form. We would use the funnier, and there's no such thing as two STs in a row. So we would say the book was funnier and more useful than other books. So that would be usage. And because these are not even um, most is a word and funniest is a word, but how are we using them? We're using them to in the comparative sense. And so how do you decide when it's spelling or usage? Uh, it's how it's being used in the sentence that we don't want repetition, and we do want to just do a comparison basically to, there's my comparison, this book to other books. This book, transition, other books. It doesn't say every other book. And it was the most useful, the most funniest. No, it was funnier, comparatively speaking, than other books. So there you have it. Thank you so much for your patience. If you took the time to watch this entire video, God bless you, my child. I hope that it was helpful. Uh, I'm going to do this one more time with a high school one. Uh, I figured I'd do one for elementary. I try to find one in the middle of the road between third through eighth grade. So I used a fifth grade one. And so another one that I'll do is either end of course 1 or an end of course 2, where I'll go into detail about their entire test, the answer choices, and the types of questions they can be asked. Why am I doing it for high school? Is because their next test is in December, and even though they won't get constructed response questions, short answer, or extended essay responses, they will get some difficult questions. And I think it's important that we begin to practice that, uh, even though we're going to just get regular expository or persuasive in December, or both if you are retesting both EOC1 and EOC2. We would be working on the expository or persuasive, and that's basically responding to a prompt, whereas our extended essay that we looked at today was responding to a question inside a play. So it's interesting. The extended essay question came from a passage that was a play genre. It wasn't from an informative. So what they're trying to say probably is, don't lock us in a box where we have to get our extended essay questions just from one type of genre. They can, according to what they were showing with all the 3rd through 10th grade responses, they can use any genre they want to ask their short answer questions, their extended essay response questions, and their constructed type responses. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me at that little address right there if you have a question, or message me if I can help you in any way. God bless you guys and have a great rest of your week.